Most comedians need jokes to make people laugh. Rowan Atkinson doesn't. For decades, he's made audiences, interviewers, and even fellow celebrities burst into laughter using almost nothing at all. No punchlines, no shouting. Sometimes not even a single word. Just a look, a pause, or an awkward expression. So how did one man become one of the funniest people on earth by doing less than everyone else? At first, Rowan Atkinson's comedy doesn't seem like it should work. Most comedians rely on jokes, fast punchlines, funny stories, or clever one-liners.
Was somebody there called Bob. Anybody else would read it and go, "Right, they're called Bob." You decided that Bob could be a funny word.
Right.
Now, quite.
Rowan does the opposite. Instead of filling every moment with words, he slows everything down. He waits, he watches, and then, at exactly the right moment, he delivers a reaction so unexpected that people can't help but laugh. It's a style of comedy that's incredibly simple, but almost impossible to master. And over time, Rowan turned that simplicity into one of the most powerful weapons in entertainment. On paper, Mr. Bean should never have become a global phenomenon. He barely speaks. He rarely tells jokes, and most of the time he's doing things that shouldn't be funny at all. Yet somehow, millions of people around the world couldn't stop laughing. The reason wasn't the stories, it wasn't the dialogue, and it certainly wasn't complicated comedy. It was Rowan Atkinson himself. Because Rowan understood something that most comedians didn't. People don't always laugh at what someone says. Sometimes they laugh at what someone is thinking, and nobody was better at turning a simple thought into a hilarious expression than Rowan Atkinson. A confused look, an awkward pause, a tiny reaction, and suddenly an entire audience would burst into laughter. Without realizing it, Rowan had created a character that could make people laugh in almost any language on earth. Most actors use words to communicate. Rowan Atkinson uses his face, and that's exactly what makes him so difficult to imitate. Over the years, millions of people have tried copying Mr. Bean. The walk, the voice, the gestures. But very few can recreate the expressions. Because Rowan's face isn't just reacting to what's happening, it's telling a story. Every raised eyebrow, every awkward stare, every look of confusion. It all reveals exactly what the character is thinking, and that's what makes people laugh. The audience isn't just watching Rowan, they're reading his mind. Before he says a single word, they already know something ridiculous is about to happen. And somehow, that anticipation makes the moment even funnier. For most comedians, silence is dangerous. If nobody is talking, the joke dies. For Rowan Atkinson, silence is where the joke begins. Instead of rushing to the punchline, Rowan often does the exact opposite. He slows everything down. He waits. Sometimes for just a few seconds, sometimes even longer. And during that silence, something interesting happens. The audience starts imagining what's coming next. A mistake, an accident, a disaster, or something completely ridiculous. The longer Rowan waits, the more tension builds. And when the payoff finally arrives, the reaction is even bigger. It's a technique that sounds simple, but very few performers have ever mastered it. Because staying silent is easy. Making silence funny is not. It's easy to assume that all of Rowan Atkinson's comedy came from Mr. Bean. But that's not entirely true, because even when the character disappeared, the timing remained. In interviews, Rowan rarely tried to dominate the conversation. He wasn't the loudest guest, he wasn't the most energetic guest, and he certainly wasn't the most talkative. Yet somehow people kept laughing, not because Rowan was trying harder than everyone else, but because he understood exactly when to say something and when not to. A perfectly timed pause, a subtle reaction, a completely unexpected answer, and suddenly the interviewer is laughing, the audience is laughing, and even the celebrities sitting nearby can't help joining in. It wasn't chaos like Kevin Hart, it was precision. And somehow that made it just as effective. Most comedy has a problem, it doesn't always travel well. A joke that's hilarious in one country might make no sense in another. Languages change, cultures change, humor changes. But somehow Mr. Bean seemed immune to all of it. Whether someone lived in London, Tokyo, Mumbai, or New York, The reaction was often the same. They laughed, and that's because Rowan Atkinson built his comedy around something much more universal than language. Human behavior, embarrassment, confusion, mistakes, awkward situations. These are things everyone understands. You don't need subtitles to recognize someone making a fool of themselves. You don't need translation to understand an awkward moment. And Rowan understood that better than almost anyone. While other comedians were speaking to specific audiences, Rowan was speaking to human nature itself. And that's why Mr. Bean became one of the few comedy characters recognized almost everywhere on Earth. Most comedy only works once. The first time you hear the joke, it's funny. The second time, it's less effective. And by the third time, the surprise is gone. Rowan Atkinson somehow broke that rule. Millions of people have watched the same Mr. Bean scenes again and again, yet they still laugh. Why? Because the joke isn't the surprise. The joke is the journey. Most viewers already know something is about to go wrong. They know Mr. Bean is about to make a terrible decision. They know a disaster is coming, but they don't know exactly how it will happen. And that's where Rowan's genius appears. Every movement, every expression, every awkward pause slowly builds anticipation. The audience isn't waiting to see what happens, they're waiting to see how badly it happens. And somehow that anticipation remains funny no matter how many times you watch it. For decades, people have tried to explain why Rowan Atkinson is so funny. Some point to Mr. Bean, others point to his expressions, his timing, or his ability to turn ordinary situations into comedy. And while all of those things matter, they don't tell the full story. Because Rowan Atkinson achieved something very few comedians ever have. He learned how to make people laugh without relying on the tools most comedians depend on. He didn't need long stories. He didn't need constant punchlines. And often he didn't even need words. Instead, he trusted something much more powerful: timing, anticipation, and human nature. That's why his comedy works in almost every country. That's why people still laugh at scenes they've watched dozens of times. And that's why, decades later, Rowan Atkinson remains one of the most recognizable comedians on the planet. Not because he said more than everyone else, but because he understood exactly when to say nothing at all. But while Rowan Atkinson mastered silence, one celebrity built his reputation doing the exact opposite. Because where Rowan waits patiently for the laugh, Ryan Reynolds attacks from every angle.